This UCSD TV program is a presentation of University of California Television. Your support makes UCTV's programming possible. Contribute online at uctv.tv/support. Check out the YouTube original channel UCTV Prime at youtube.com/UCTV Prime. Subscribe today to get new programs every week.
Good afternoon and welcome back to the second half of Mexico Moving Forward 2012 Symposium. And we'll continue with our third session called Lending and Selling to the Poor. We also have an audience that is joining us via the internet, and we want to remind them to please go ahead and continue sending your questions to our panelists at USMEXUCSD. At twitter.com or via email at mmf2012@ucsd.edu. We have a great panel ahead, and again, talking about lending and selling to the poor. And just to get set up what this panel is about, according to official statistics, Mexico has 11.7 million people living under extreme poverty, and almost half live under moderate poverty, which means they are lacking the necessary income to purchase their basic needs and do not have access to many basic services. Having the poor as clients is challenging because those who live in poverty must make very careful decisions on how they will allocate their limited resources. Nonetheless, Mexican firms have succeeded even in environmental situations where regulation and structural conditions are very adverse for business. We'll explore in this session some of the challenges faced by world-class companies that sell and lend to the poor. So on our panel, first, Carlos Danel is Executive Vice President and co-founder of Banco Compartamos, Latin America's largest for-profit microfinance bank, and the first institution of its kind to issue an IPO valued at nearly $2 billion. And we also have Gabriel Lagos, a sustainability coordinator of Casas Geo, a company committed to developing sustainable communities reflecting human aesthetic with features that promote social well-being and to improve the quality of life of individuals. And we have Joel Suarez Aldana, CEO of Gruma, the most globalized food company in Mexico and the worldwide leader in corn, flour, and tortilla production. So welcome to our panelists, and we'll go ahead and start with Carlos first.
Good afternoon. I'd like to start off thanking UCSD for the invitation, Alberto and Manuel, for having us here, and thank you very much for your time here and your interest. Certainly, the question behind this event, how to keep Mexico moving forward, is quite compelling and quite challenging. Let me maybe start by having you visualize or imagine this. So you got up this morning, you came over here to this conference and essentially registered, got your badge, got a bag, and all of a sudden, when you try to enter this room, you were denied access for whatever reason. You just couldn't get in. You try to work your way through that, no success. You turn around, you leave. You kind of leave with a sense of you're missing something, right? You know, you'd hope to learn something, you'd hope to engage and talk with people, but you leave with a sense of loss, with a sense that an opportunity was missed. Imagine that this happens every day of your life. You try to seize an opportunity, it's not there. It's not there for you. might be there for others, but it's not there for you. Unfortunately, for many, many years, that has been the life of many, many millions of Mexicans. For different reasons, people have been excluded. Excluded socially, financially, excluded from access to quality products and services like healthcare, very basic stuff like housing, education. And one, of course, can ask, why is this? And I think it's a very complex answer. There are many, many things going on at the same time that make it so. Some of them have been spoken about here. Might be some, conscious or unconscious bias in our culture. It might be that there are significant vested interests in our society and in our economy that, some people perceive, or some group of people perceive, that it is best to keep other groups excluded. Best in their own interest, I guess. Even as Santiago was saying, even the excluded sometimes find incentives, perverse incentives in our society to perpetuate their own exclusion. So, clearly, if one thinks about what has kept Mexico from moving forward, and if one thinks that poverty, one of the explanations or one of the underlying causes in poverty is that exclusion, then one must think of inclusion as a potential solution. So, given that context, I grew up in a Mexico where traditionally we thought that this problem of poverty and this problem of exclusion was really a government problem, right? It was a state's role to deal with this. And we essentially lived in kind of a bipolar Mexico where, we knew that was happening, or we know that's happening, but, that's somebody else's responsibility. And at some point even, it's either the state or maybe, institutions like the church, who has a great tradition in trying to alleviate those sorts of problems. But certainly, a very, I would say, inactive, passive civil society that thinks that this is somebody else's problem. But for a group of friends, finishing high school, and starting college and thinking about our future careers, this kind of didn't sound right to us. We thought that there was something deeply wrong with this, with the fact that we thought that somebody else was responsible and somebody else had to do something about it. And of course, back then, and even today, there were no easy answers. And, no quick fixes. And we really didn't know where the solutions were. But what we did decide to do was to act. So, as volunteers, we started an NGO in Oaxaca and Chiapas that essentially concentrated on doing two things. One was, nutrition, and the other one was rural healthcare. And very fast, we were very frustrated. And those of you that have been in those sorts of social development fields from civil society know what I'm talking about. Because in many ways, what really was very frustrating was that we spent 80% of our time fundraising and convincing people why this was worth doing. And maybe, in the best of cases, 20% of our time actually doing something about it. So one actually was very frustrated because we thought, we could do so much more, but it was just difficult, right? And at that time, from the nutrition program, we had a relationship with USAID, who then suggested that we look at, other places in Central America and in Asia where people were actually implementing microfinance programs. We didn't really know what, microfinance was, or even finance. I was and I am a architecture major. The other co-founder is an engineer, and the group, there was no banker or no finance type. Curiously enough, 22 years after that, there still aren't any bankers or financiers in But anyways, we set out to look at it. And we visited, Grameen Bank, very famous in Bangladesh. We visited Finca in El Salvador and in other places. And the first thing that struck us was that, potentially there was a way to alleviate the frustration that we were getting. We saw that, there was huge demand from self-employed, micro-entrepreneurs, people that had very simple income-generating activities that needed capital to grow and couldn't find it. And not only that, but we saw this as, back then, Grameen was already an institution that had close to 1 million clients, and we were just blown away by the scale. We were very obsessed with scale because we really wanted to build something that was meaningful within the Mexican context. So we kind of got a glimpse of this concept of using business or commercial principles to help solve social problems. And the fact that our families were, had a background in private sector, business, and we were actually starting our careers and studying to being in that space, we said, this might be something worthwhile pursuing. So we set up Compartamos. And what was at first our night job very quickly and unexpectedly became our day job. And, it eventually evolved to what it is, what's a company that has a very strong culture and a very clear sense of purpose. We say Compartamos' purpose, actually, is that through financial inclusion to the base of the pyramid in the Americas, we want to create 3 types of value: social value, economic value, and human value. Now, what do we mean by social value? Well, there's an underlying assumption that access to financial services, a place to save, a place to get money for education, housing, business, a place to cover yourself through or for some shocks like microinsurance, and a place to actually transact and do payments, access to financial services is better than non-access. And go back again to my reflection on exclusion. We found that traditional banks were not willing to serve this segment of the population because they thought pretty much they were unbankable. So we defined social value for us as trying to provide access to financial services to as many people as possible in the shortest amount of time. So really a big drive for growth. And to do it, not just for access itself, but to do it in an environment or building an environment where clients, through client protection systems and financial literacy, could benefit from these financial products. Because we all know that financial products have their dark side, especially debt. So they can be misused. So one of the core things about access was, yes, access, but in a way that can be useful for people. Then economic value. And again, that's probably better defined already in your minds. But to us, it was about creating a profitable, sound company where the capital markets and the private sector could invest and could provide a means for growth and for permanence and to create an industry. And finally, human value is a third bottom line. And this one is even, it's a bit more exceptional, I would say, than the other two, and very particular to the kind of culture and identity and DNA in Compartamos, because I think everything of what we do starts from the point of thinking that the individual, that people have both the ability, the willingness of being better people, of growing. So we like to say that we believe in people and in their ability to be better and to grow. So we try to provide an environment, and we try to provide a place, both for our staff as well for our clients, investors, and every stakeholder, where people can grow. So we set up Compartamos back in the early 90s. And to be honest, we kind of got off to a slow start. In the first years, of course, we had been able to develop the product. We knew how to lend. We knew how to collect. We even started, building the back office, the backbone of this company, so that it could grow. To start even behaving like a financial institution, building bridges with the regulators and with different actors. But we got off to a slow start in the sense that in the first decade of our existence, we went from 0 to 64,000 clients. That was all we could actually serve. And even though we'd done all that, one of the main restrictions for our growth was not different from what was happening in the lives of our clients, which was we ourselves didn't have much access to funding. And in the core of that problem was the fact that in a middle-income country like Mexico, where there wasn't a large, international cooperation or even donor community, accessing, the capital required us to speak the language of the market, right? And we couldn't. We were an NGO. We couldn't actually engage in a business-like transaction with whoever could fund us. So by the end of the 90s, we thought that it was worth pursuing converting our operation into a formal financial institution. First as a finance company, eventually as a bank. It's a regulated bank. And you can imagine the face on the regulators the first time we showed up, and we essentially asked to. It was a regulated activity, so we wanted a license to do a finance company to lend, do unsecured lending to rural women in Mexico for very tiny amounts of loans, and none of us had any clue what banking was about. I mean, at least formally. So it took us a while to actually, talk to people and have them understand that at the end of the day, our goal wasn't and still is not to provide a loan or a savings account or an insurance product. What we wanted to do is, again, to provide financial inclusion and opportunities for growth for those who didn't have them in Mexico, which we thought was crucial. So we kept at it, and I think not because we were very articulate by it, but because we were very just insistent, they finally allowed us to set up the finance company. And then the next 10 years, the next decade, was totally different in terms of growth. Whereas we had grown 60,000 clients in the first decade, the second decade we grew more than 2 million clients. And it was the ability not only to build a company with everything that entails and with a very clear sense of purpose, but also the ability to tap into the capital markets. We were the first company, microfinance company in the world, to actually issue a public bond to mainstream, regular institutional investors, and then, again, converted into a bank in the year 2006, and then went public in the year 2007. So clearly, a growth story in that second decade. Today, Compartamos is actually a group of companies. Actually, Compartamos is a holding company of a group of companies that work in 3 different countries: Mexico, Guatemala, and Peru, mostly Mexico. And through microfinance, either finance companies or banks, and a couple of other subsidiaries that deal with microinsurance products as well as payments, and also a foundation of the group. We have just over 16,000 employees, full-time employees in Compartamos, again, in these 3 countries with multiple products, with what has become a much more sophisticated operation, just over $1 billion in assets, and like has been mentioned, we're a publicly traded company in the Mexican Bolsa. And so clearly growth, and again, our ability to have those whose doors had been shut to start opening and to start including them, and specifically to provide financial inclusion. Now, we still have plenty of challenges, and there are significant questions outlying. Compartamos in itself, and this whole idea of using business or commercial principles to help solve social problems is a controversial It's a difficult, sometimes, thesis to grasp. In the core of this controversy, I think, is the fact that for many of us, doing well and doing good are two different things. And even though we speak a lot about it, in practice, we really struggle with the fact that, having institutional mainstream investors in social ventures, I think, creates this suspicion that they might damage the mission or the sense of purpose of these institutions. And clearly, I think we still don't understand fully the role of profits as a source of growth and of building industries. There's clearly, for anyone, I think it's obvious to understand that if you're using commercial and business principles, and profit is one of them, there's an immediate role of profits, which is to reward the owners of capital. But that in itself, I think, distracts from another very important social role of profits, which is not only to fuel growth, but also to attract others to build industries. And there are many, many examples of this. If you think about the internet and all the services that you and I have today and probably take for granted even on a smartphone. Before the internet existed, there were a few pioneers that actually started, the very basic first services through the web. And it was probably the result of the large and very visible windfalls of a few of these pioneers that others came in and started competing and started being creative about what kinds of products and services we could use online. And today we have what we have. So it is, in many ways, nothing new. It's the same way that many industries have been built, but we thought, and again, Compartamos has always had not only the immediate goal of building a company, a social company, but really of trying or helping, contributing to build a larger industry in which people will come and compete and provide multiple products and services to the clients. And one way of doing that is to, in a way, show that there is, to the private sector, over average profits in starting up an industry. And it's not only about attracting capital, it's also about attracting talent. So I think partly that process is well underway in terms of financial inclusion in Mexico. So whereas 22 years ago, a client of Compartamos had very few to none choices of who they could go for their financial needs in a formal way, today, they have plenty of choices. Today, if you go to Mexico and you walk the streets of any of these towns, rural, suburban, and even urban Mexico, you will find that, in any given community, there's a host of different institutions, actually over 1,000 different institutions of all shapes and types, be it, co-ops, credit unions, banks, finance companies, NGOs, all kinds of different entities competing to serve the financial needs of what used to be the underserved or the unserved. So in many ways, again, I think in Compartamos, we are certainly proud of what we've built as a company, but that really pales in comparison about the pride that we get of having contributed to building a larger financial inclusion industry. But we have a problem. See, whereas many, many years ago I told you we were frustrated because we spent so much time fundraising, today we're still frustrated. And we're still frustrated because after many, many years we'll still realize that even though financial inclusion is so important, it's just a drop in the bucket. It's not enough, clearly. There are many things, like I started out saying, where the underserved or the excluded need to be included. Politically, socially, and in many, many other ways. So in a complex reality, when all that has to happen, we've kept asking ourselves, what else can we do? And again, Compartamos is and will focus on providing financial inclusion in Mexico and now in other places in Latin America. But it got to even the point that, because we were frustrated that people were actually demanding and could use access to, healthcare, agriculture services, infrastructure, clean water, education, all sorts of different services and products, we then set up a different, parallel effort with an impact investment fund that some of you might know is named IGNIA, also based in Monterrey. And what IGNIA does is basically an impact investment fund that invests in social entrepreneurship in all these areas. So we've invested in agriculture, housing, education, healthcare, clean water, among other things. And the whole idea behind it being, again, to try to create this model of social entrepreneurship where there is an explicit intent and goal of building social value and at the same time building economic value. And the challenge is big. I think we're at a better point than we were before, and I think it's good news that Mexico, in many ways, not only recognizes the huge inequalities that we have, but we're willing to do something about it. Now, I will just end by saying that the model of social enterprise by no means is a silver bullet. It has, like anything else, its limits, and it's also its unintended consequences that one has to deal with. So it's by no means, and again, after 20 years, we've come to realize very clearly that in these complex issues, there are no silver bullets. There is no cookie-cutter approach. But what we do think it is again, it's a tool. It's a tool within a toolbox that hopefully can contribute to get Mexico moving forward. And again, back in the early 90s when we were students, we were wondering, what is the solution to the problems? And we probably still don't have a full answer. But we have engaged, we have done things, and we encourage others to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. Gabriel Lagos.
Good afternoon. I'm very glad and honored to be here to share some of the experience of the company that I represent. This company is Casas Geo. I'm going to try to share some of the experience we have building social housing, sustainable social housing. I will explain why for the bottom of the pyramid. But first of all, I will tell you who is Casas Geo. Casas Geo is a company that has been here for 38 years. We're building around 60,000 houses per year. The average cost of the house is $17,000. Today, nearly 2.3 million people is living in Casa Geo, and this is non-government owned largest social housing company in the world, and it's in Mexico. Why? I think some of the answers of why are we building so many homes, and we will be building so many homes, is because humankind species is growing really fast. By 1950, there were around 80 cities with more than 1 million people. In less than 50 years, there were already 365 cities with more than 1 million people. And we're expecting that by 2025, there will be nearly 500 cities with more than 1 million people. So we're facing in this century the greatest growth on human population and the greatest growth in cities. It's just not because of the population is growing, it's also because the population is moving to the cities. So what I think is that we have to be really extraordinary. We have to be fantastic building cities. If we want to enjoy, if we want to have water, if we want to preserve the energy, most of this energy, land, will be consumed in these new cities. So we really have to improve the way we make cities. Who has the greatest challenge of building cities? Unfortunately, the developing countries. The developing countries are the ones that have to take the most of this challenge because they have the greatest growth. So this makes it a little bit harder. The rest of the countries, the developed countries, they did grow, but they did it slower. And now we'll have to do this in a fast track. I'm going to try to explain some of the considerations of growing in a wrong way. What happens if we don't do this properly? First of all, the new housing complex in many times, especially Asia, South America, Africa, are bigger than the pre-existing community. Try to imagine this as humans. I understand it much easierly that way. You have a human, and then your new neighbor is bigger than you. He came, and you don't know him. You don't share the culture that he has. You don't share his traditions. He was not invited, and he came to your house. He's bigger than you. He will consume more water than you. He will put more traffic than you. He will take your resources, your policeman. He will take your cemetery, your church, every single service that you have been building by generations. And all the people that you're around with, you know each other. And this new guy that just came, that is stronger and that is bigger, you don't know him. This will definitely create some conflicts. This will put some pressure to the system. And the government that is attending these things doesn't have either the capacity to face it. They cannot grow in size in less than 3 years by double. This is happening around 37,000 people will move to a new community in less than 3 years. This is the expected rate of growth that has been going for almost 20 years. So these are the consequences of this issue. First of all, the thing that I was telling you, it will be a cultural clash. When you have two societies and you can easily identify the difference between one society and the other society, it's easier to create friction. This happens with the color of the skin. You can easily see how they dress one from the other, or how they look one from the other, or you can see the building, and you know this is all the new people that came from abroad. It's easier to create the fiction because it's easier to identify these people that came from abroad. So this increases the risk of creating a cultural clash. These people that just arrived, this new guy, even its constitution is heterogenic on the people that they came. There are people from many, many different places. They don't belong even together. And the only thing they share is they have a really low income. And the other thing they share is the place we live. If you were a sociologist, this is the perfect storm. You have many people, no social tissue, they moved fast, they came to a new community, they are getting friction with one community to another. And the difference between humans and communities is if we fight as humans, we'll fight for 1 week, 1 month, and then we get bored and we get friends again. If we do it by families, okay, maybe 10 years. But if we do it in communities, it will take centuries to bring down this conflict. So it's much more dangerous. And this will make the social tissue to the composture. This will increase the violence. People will start abandoning their houses, and they will stop paying the mortgage. They will make the access for housing even harder. So I just try to give a facts picture of what happens if you don't do it on the right way. What happens if you don't do it on a sustainable way? We have definitely done this in every sector for some years, but now it's getting a little bit more itchy. We're more people, and we definitely have to change the way we do things. We have this reflection in the company, and we're completely sure that any company that wants to sell a product today, the product has to be good in a deep way. It has to be good for the society, for the client, on a long-term relation. It has to be good for the government. It has to be good for the company. That it means it's sustainable. We'll have to take care of the resources, of the economics, and the social environment. So this is the vision of the company. We're trying to create not housing. We don't want to make houses. We want to make sustainable communities. I will explain what we understand for that. This is how we see the business. We see some of our competitors understanding the business as building and selling homes. The product they sell is a home, and they start fighting for the price. We, on the other side, we're looking and we're seeking, and I think everybody's almost following a little bit, and this is fastly increasing. The product that we sell is we really want to make something that improves the life of the customer on a long-term relation. And to do this, we need a sustainable community. And we don't have to give the cheapest price. It has to be affordable, otherwise it's just a dream. It has to be affordable, but the product is different, and the customer will understand. This is the hard part. I'll try to explain the solution. It's quite complex, and we just have some minutes, but I hope you understand. So the first part of the solution is easy. We cannot go to a new community and rest. We cannot take resources. We have to add. Rest, no, subtract. We cannot subtract resources. We have to add things to the new community. What happens if instead of building these walls, we take out the wall and we put a park? What if we put a soccer court and we put them to play together? How is the relation changing? What if we put a hospital? What if we increase the amount of ways of transportation on the locality? What if, before even starting building, we go to the community and we find out what they have been dreaming of? Maybe they have been dreaming for a soccer court forever. And that will be very easy for us to add to the community, and we start with the right step. And we also have to need, what do they need? Because sometimes they want something and they need the other thing. So we take very carefully considerations on infrastructure. I put the word hardware for you to understand what do we mean for the infrastructure. But hardware is not enough. And that took us some more years to understand. You can put a fantastic hardware. It's like if you put all these university, you need the teachers. You need a good course. Otherwise, this place will die. The DNA of this university is on the people that live there. And if the software, the culture, the people that you have there, it works, it will even improve the hardware that you build. I will try to explain it in a different way. If you come to my house and you see plenty of bottles of alcohol, you don't know me, and you think everything is trash and everything is very messy, you can have some conclusions on how I live. What do I like? How is my life? If you can instead and you see plenty of books, everything is ordered. There are books, pens, and papers. You can think of my life. So there is a strong relation on the infrastructure that you see with the culture. You can see it in a town, you can see it in a city, you can see it in a country. And one will enrich or will subtract from the other. If you have a fantastic school with very good teachers, many students will come, you will have more resources, and the university starts to grow. If you do it the opposite way, it will affect you. And also, if you have fantastic installations, people will like to work in your installations. So we have to work in both sides. The harder part is the cultural, the software one. This, I will come back, 37,000 people moving in less than 3 years. This never happened in history. It went slower. There were families, they know each other. There is a huge complex net supporting the society. Then they will come, each one in their own little houses. And they feel apart, they feel afraid, and they don't feel they know each other. It's very unlikely that if we put a football court, we already did, and they will start playing football. That's what we expected. And we waited, and suddenly became a strong guy and took some drugs. A little kid wanted to play football. He kicked out the ball. Then they started a gang. But that's only the infrastructure. But if you put a teacher to teach them how to play football, you put classes, you put the ball, you have football teams. When we started doing this, we had 80 football teams in less than 3 months. They were eager to play football. And if everybody's playing football, then the guy that wants to take some more drugs, he will say, well, I'm not going to do it alone, so I have to play football. And you start inducing the culture. We have a fantastic and unique moment when we create new communities. And that's, I think, the biggest thing I want to share. When you change to a school and you come to the classroom and you don't know anybody, you feel a little bit weak. You don't feel a network that will support you. And you want to mess up with the class. And then 10 people stand up and say, hey, you don't mess here. Either you behave this way or you go. That happens to people that move to a new city, to a new community, to a new school. They have a period of adaptation, and they will be open for just some time to change any habit. That's why we have all the brands behind us. Please give them my shampoo, please give them my soap, my soup, because they know that if they change brand, they will stick with a new brand. There is only one window. And I think when the snail goes in one way, it's very hard to make it go the other way. So you start one track, it will go, it will go, it will go, and you can induce that to be the right track. But you have to start at the beginning. If everything became a mess, then the mess becomes more mess. I hope I explained myself, but it's very important to induce the culture in the right moment, to induce new habits. And it's not us to tell which are the habits. What we do is we bring all the people together, we put them in a room. We were not able to have this meeting if we didn't have this infrastructure. If we were in the street with the sun, maybe some rain, this wouldn't happen. So we have to create spaces for people to meet. So we do that. We create community centers. And we make the space, we put the people, and we just put the rules. We believe in two things. First thing is, nobody else in Earth knows more about yourself than yourself. I know if I like my sweater, if I feel itchy, if I'm hungry, if I'm bored, if I'm happy. Nobody else knows. Not even Sigmund Freud, after 10 years of exploring yourself, he will know. He will not know who you are. The people that knows the most is yourself. So the community is expert on the community. There are no other experts. And the other thing we believe is you're the only person with the means to take you from one position to the other. And the third one that it goes around is that we will go. So we better teach them how to grow, to get stronger, and to face challenges, because there will be many. So that's all the cultural program that we build on community centers. And the other is the infrastructure program. And okay, let's close this a little bit more. We want to guarantee that in every single community we have those 10 things. The first thing is the harder one, is the software. All that little family, we call it vida comunitaria, communitary life. We need to have education, basic education to high education. We'll need to have fantastic public space. I'll explain you why. We have to have access to the basic things they will need to buy on a very cheap price. Otherwise, it doesn't work. They don't have the money. They need to have a house, that's for sure. Shelter is a basic need, and we're good at that. We need to increase the way people move in different ways, sustainable mobility. We need to have water, energy, security, health, and work. But if we only put this like that, it would not work. And I will finish with this. We have to put it in a very intelligent way. The first thing to make a community work is they need a heart. People like to see people. That's the thing we enjoy the most. When you go to a holiday, you want to sit on the plaza, have a beer, or maybe a coffee, see the other people around, and start sharing experience with other people. You don't want to be alone. Private space will never be enough. It doesn't matter if I give you 40, 50, or 100 square meters. You will want to go out of your house and enjoy the city. If there is not a meeting place, and you put intelligence of putting a right meeting place, the community will end. The second thing we learned, and it was very important, is if you go to Oaxaca, to Chiapas, to San Diego, you want it to smell, taste, and feel like Chiapas. So in order to make this new community belongs to the other community, we have to understand that community. Which are the leaders on this community? Which is the history of this community? Which is the natural value? Which are the architectural experiences they have? Because we will have to take this and bring it to the new community. We have to take exactly the same parties that they are celebrating. We're coming to their house, and we have to behave in their house. And then this new development will enrich the pre-existing context. It's not another one, it does belong. It has an open door, it added value, it added equipment, it added education, health, and it does belong to the same. It talked about my grandfather, he built that little thing, and the name of the street is the name of my grandfather, and that brings community together. We also have to make connections, emotionally connections. Many people live here, they don't go to the sea very often, but they live on the coast. And we need a football team. Humans need to belong. And if we give them, you see the other pictures, 9,000 houses, the same color in squares. Who would like to live there? Who wants to belong to the house 380,000 on the macro? No. I want my little street with number 25, and I want my own colors, and I want my own identity. And we have to make this grow bigger and bigger. For the first block of houses, I don't know how I'm in time, it's around 60 houses, and we bring them to a very intimate space. Then when we build 400, 500 houses, we call this a barrio, and we also put a heart into the barrio, and all the families will play with small children in the barrio. And we have a group of barrios, then we make a colonia. And the colonia knows itself by its colonia. It's like a football team, it's like your school. They will try to be better than the other colonia, and this makes every colonia a better colonia. You cannot take care of everything, no? It's like, let's clean the world. No, I will clean my street, and probably I work in my city, but I cannot clean the world. So we're bringing this to more a bigger human scale. Then we learned that we need more dense cities. I think this is a lesson that is going worldwide. It's also happening here in the States. We have very little amount of earth, and we really have to take care of it. We have to improve the use of earth in order to have green areas, to have parks, to have places where we can grow food, and to have homes. When we're increasing the density, I will give you just a number, by 2010, we were building 6% of our homes on a vertical way. By 2011, 40% of our homes were in a vertical way, and we're probably achieving 65% this year. We do need to make denser cities. That makes life more enjoyable, more productive, less energy, less maintenance of streets and whatever. And the last thing is we have to increase the way we use the energy by isolation, water heating systems, and fantastic public space. This is the way we think we have to improve, and this fantastic public space has to do with many things. We don't want to see grass everywhere. We're in the middle of the desert and we have grass. This is crazy. This has to stop. Grass is from England. It rains all day long. It's beautiful to see the grass in England. If I want to go to the desert, I want to see a spectacle of cactus. I want to see an explosion of cactus with sand in the middle of the desert. It has to taste as a desert. And this is a much more sustainable way. And when we start doing this, even the birds of the region start coming, and it just works. When things are right, everything starts matching. And that's about it. I just want to share some pictures so you get a clue of what is these community centers. They do really work really fine. These are our schools. We're really making first-class schools. We have to give really good schools, really good public space. I'm very sorry about that grass. This is a commerce. These are the houses, also with these water heating systems. We're getting really into cycling roads. Actually, we are the largest cycling roads builders in Mexico. We have built more than the government of the biggest 5 cities together. We're really building biking roads, and we give away bikes. If we give the infrastructure and we put the bike, the culture starts, and people is biking. Only 6% of our customers have enough money to have a car. So it's crazy to build huge roads when everybody's jumping on the only car that is going 100 kilometers. We also are building healthcare facilities, and we try to build capacity and connection to the employment. So this is the little baby first steps towards sustainable communities. We do understand it's a long road. I think humanity is just starting to realize the impact and the road that we have ahead. But this is the effort we're making. Thank you very much.
And our third panelist, Joel Suarez Aldana.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for inviting me here, Carlos, and really to be here. Last night we were talking about the name of this event, and we were talking about how we as Mexicans really feel and don't promote ourselves. And we were precisely with Carlos and Rodrigo, we were talking about comparison to Brazil. We were talking about last night about Brazil. Now, when I saw this morning that the comparison with the statistics with Brazil, I mean, we are not really doing that bad, you know, in Mexico, but we as a Mexican are very critical of ourselves, and we need to promote more of what we're doing. What I want to talk today to you is about GRUMA. GRUMA is Grupo Maseca, which is a very, Grupo Maseca is the one that converts the tortilla, you know, the corn flours. We are a tortilla company. Every time that I cross the border and I go to the immigration and say, where do you work? I work making tortillas. They just start laughing and say, yeah, I do make tortillas. What kind of tortillas? Mission food. Oh, yeah, mission food. Well, those mission food tortillas are really our tortillas, and that is a Mexican company. So, and we are very proud to be in here. Here, just to give you the first thing, who do we are? We consider ourselves one of the most globalized Mexican company in Mexico, obviously. Just to give a perspective, we are indisputable the world leader in corn flour and tortilla production. Just to give you the tortilla production here in the United States, we produce 102 million tortillas a day. And in a year, we produce over 30 billion tortillas a day here. Here in the United States, we do have 22 plants that make tortillas, and we do have 6 million plants that make the corn flour. So we have been here in the United States for 40 years. It's not only that we have been in the United States. So we really consider ourselves that we are really going into the wheat flour and other base products, such as flat press and steak products. And just to give you where we are right now, we do have 99 plants around the world. We have in America, Europe, Asia, Oceania, and more, and we employ more than 20,000 employees. We are present, our product is present in 113 countries with global brands like Maseca and Mission, and other local leader brands like Guerrero. Guerrero is also a brand of the group of Maseca. In 2011, we sold $4.5 billion. We grew 26% over last year, and we're expecting to grow another 26%, so we probably will be reaching the $5.5 billion worldwide. If you look at it here, we are in the United States, obviously. We are in Mexico, obviously. And we, in the United States, we are in Central America, we're in Venezuela, we're in Europe. In Europe, we're in London, we're in Holland, we're in Italy. And also we are in the milling company, we are in Italy, we're in Ukraine, we are in Turkey, and we probably very close to going to Poland. So, and also we are in China, and we are in Australia, and we are also in Taiwan. So this is a very global company, and which I am proud to be part of that. I have been with the company for 25 years. And really, this is a very, very good company. Anyway, I don't want to go talk about very elaborate and very technical about the vision, mission, values, and business strategy and total quality. I just want to talk about briefly the vision. Really, the founder of this company is Don Roberto González Barrera. The company has been founded 63 years ago. Really started in Mexico. He started with his father. His father just by looking at, they wanted to modernize the production of a tortilla. The tortilla was, it is done, as a matter of fact, nixtamal, that you cook the corn, and you have a lot of problems of using waters and waste and all that. So what they thought is really to make a corn flour, to make it in a more mass production with a very high quality. Whenever they initiate that, we also develop the technology. We were talking about this morning about how the technology, we produce our own technology. The milling technology, we also produce that technology. And we also advance and produce the tortilla machines too. So we are vertically integrated. I mean, we do have the technology, we do have the corn flour, and we have the commercial part of the tortillas. So really the vision of the owner has been evolving. And really the vision of the owner and the founder is to be part of every meal location in every country in which we are in. That really is the vision. If you look at the previous map, the only continent in which we are not is in Africa. And probably and that has been his dream, that has been his vision, and that's where we're gonna be venturing for next year to really go into Africa. And with that, we will accomplish that we are really, the tortilla is in every part of the world. And that's what that's his vision, that's what he really meant to do it, and that's what we're getting into it. The mission, really, they are very simple, very simple. We need to provide a very, very good quality product with the best service and the best price that we can offer, not only to our customers, but also to our providers and to the middlemen. So those are the three main things of our vision. And the values is really of our founding, which is the philosophy of founder. We were talking about this morning, Santiago was talking about this morning about how the Mexicans are, that they're a very hard worker. Well, one of the main values that we have, that's an effort. We call it the effort. Really, we are a very hard working people in the company. And it starts with the owner. We practically, just like the salespeople say, well, we work 24/7. I used to be a financial guy. I say, well, we don't work 24/7. We only work 7-Eleven. So that's a debate between that. But the only point that we want to talk about is that really that we are a very, very dedicated and hard worker people. We also have the second one is the commitment and the engagement that you need to have. And it starts one more time with the owner. You really need to be committed to this. If you look at the organization in Gruma Corporation, if you ask the people how many years they have been in the company, you can build centuries and centuries of people working. Whenever people start working in Gruma, and they love it and they like it. I was a financial guy before, and I started working with this company 25 years ago, and I'm still here, and I'm loving it with that. Because really the opportunity to grow, the opportunity to really reach every part of the world, and the opportunity to really develop yourself has been really great. And not only with myself, but with every part of the organization that is working with it, there are really people with a lot of passion into it. So the other thing is the business strategy. Every time that we go to a country, really we adapt to just like everybody else is saying, we adapt to the circumstances. We have been going, for example, here when we entered the United States about 40 years ago, we entered by buying a little company here in Los Angeles. Later on, whenever we enter Europe, we did not enter buying anything. We really built a company there because there was a need to teach the people what it was the tortilla all about. We were selling, and we were selling not only to the retailers, we were co-packing to people, especially in England, which we had 2 plants in England. We sell about more than $150 million in there a year. So you will imagine in England that they buy the wraps. It is a big flour tortilla in which they put a lot of stuff inside. They sell it cold. I don't like it because I like more hot, but that's the way they're used to that. They're very practical people, but that really, England is the sandwich, the sandwich, and they are using that as a substitute of the sandwich, and that's our opportunity for us to really grow there. So we do have 2 plants, and we are really going to be increasing another plant, because really the demand is growing tremendously. So really, the strategy has been different in every country in which we are. When we went to China, we also built a plant. When we went to Australia, we bought a plant, and then we built a plant. So, and we do a lot of research before, like everybody else doing it, and also adapt our model into that. But one thing that we really put in a lot of emphasis is the selection of the people that we put into the organization. That is a key ingredient for the success of our company. They have to have that passion, that commitment, and that effort, and that perseverance to really to be working for this company. As a matter of fact, 2 months ago, or no, 3 weeks ago, it was named HIMSA, which is the milling company in Mexico, was named the best place to work in Mexico. The company was HIMSA, which is one of the milling company. It is in Mexico. That was the award that we got this year. So, and we are also emphasizing a lot of the total quality of our product. The quality is the number one. That really what makes the difference in the whole thing. We are really very focused about the quality of our products. How do we face the current situation? Whenever there is a crisis, we were talking about last night in the dinner, really we are in the industry which is a, what is it they call it, a depression, recession resistant, Whenever there is a recession, whenever there is an economic crisis, that is an opportunity. People have to eat. And hopefully they can eat tortillas. And those are very cheap. And that's what the opportunity really is to really grow into that. And we adapted into that. So whenever there is a crisis, there is really an opportunity to even grow further into that. As you look at it, last year we grew 26%. I mean, who will imagine in that financial crisis, to be growing 26%? And we are really also looking for this year to be growing another 26%, because that's an opportunity to really be growing into that. Why? Because, people don't have a lot of money, and they are more, they don't have, and so they are looking for about alternative products, and that's where we came in. We have been developing a lot of products that we adapt to really to the needs of what is the consumer. And we can classify the consumer as the Hispanic consumer, the Anglo consumer, and what do they buy, and we adapt it into that. One of the things that we are finding out, for example, here in the United States, for example, the Hispanic, what they call the Hispanic population really has changed dramatically. The Hispanic population is more culturalized, so what does that mean? They mean that they use less corn tortilla and they produce more, and they buy more flour tortilla because they are more culturalized. Whenever there's people coming from Mexico, they eat a lot of more corn-based products. And that's what we are really monitoring that, and we are adapting and developing new products to really target it to those customers. Now, this is what I have been saying, that whenever there is a crisis, we have been opportunities. And one of the biggest things that we are constantly innovation. Innovation, that's part of it. That's part of our success into that. We are also constantly adapting. We have really, the Maseca, who would now that there is a lot of people that they need to be more healthy products and all that, we can add some more whole grain. We can add whole grain. We can add some vitamins. We can add that. So really, we are adapting a lot of what the needs are, and we are also looking for what is the best product for the population. We have also, the wraps, the paninas with us are really mainly in the European size. We also are producing naans, pitas, and all that. We are really evolving more to a more. We are evolving more. Instead of being a tortilla company, we want to be really a more multicultural food, starting from the tortilla, for the wrap, for the rolls, and from the dessert. We are really looking also for the dessert, especially for the children. The Hispanic population in the United States has been growing, but really they have been growing, and they have been younger and younger, because there are more people born in here in the United States that are Hispanic than the people that are coming from Mexico. And that really has changed, and that's what our biggest opportunity that we can be working with the rolls and desserts, and that's a big opportunity that we can have. So The other thing is that we are finding, and we are finding it last year, you will never imagine, these are the uses. This is the corn. It's a gluten-free product, which is a very healthy attribute that we can have. We can use it to make cornflakes, to be polenta, which we make it there in Europe, and beer. Extruded snacks and pellets, and then the tortilla chips. It's not only the corn with the tortillas, it's all with this, all this that we can really develop. With this corn, we can really develop all these products. We are really focusing right now in the beer industry, especially in Europe and the Eastern Europe. In the Eastern Europe, they are using a lot of the corn in order to really make beer. So that is one of the biggest opportunities. We just recently, last year, we bought a corn mill in Turkey. And we are the reason that we bought it is the best technology that is available to make grits. That's the grits in which you can make the beer. And also we are really exporting it from Turkey to the Middle East. So we also bought 2 years ago we bought another in Ukraine, and we just bought another one in Russia, a tortilla company in Russia. So really, this is one of the biggest opportunities that we have is in our beer, especially in the European and the Asia and Australia, and that's what we are developing also a lot. Okay. And the other thing is we are really putting a lot into our brands. We really have a brand equity, Maseca. I think we have been doing a lot of research, and every time that we put the Maseca brand, it has a lot of brand equity. And that really has opened the door, and really it started all the way to Mexico. You know, it really did not start in the United States. It really that from Mexico. And here in the United States, what we have been developing is the Mission brand, which has been extended not only in the United States, but throughout the world. We also exported that brand into Mexico and to Central America, and also to European and the Asia, and we also have exported that brand of Mission Foods. The other thing that is important is the technology. Last year, we were in a market tour here in San Diego. We went to a very high Hispanic area that is here in San Diego, which is the City of Heights, I think. City of Heights, right? City of Heights? City Heights, yeah, City Heights, which 95% is all Hispanics. And out of that, 85% are coming from really Mexico. So what we found in a radius of 1 mile, we found 60 tortillerias. And that all make nixtamal. They're cooked in a very old, the traditional way with a lot of waste water and all that. So what we are really now, we want to put a tortilleria, to really a state-of-the-art tortilleria. So whenever we went to the authorities to get permission for get the permit to get the tortilleria, when we came in, hey, we came here to put a tortilleria. When I said, oh no, another one. No, we don't want you anymore. Because of the problems that are causing with the pollution on the water and all that. I said, wait a minute, we don't use that, and we use Maseca, we use the corn flour. I said, oh, okay, then they gave us that permission. So one of the things is that we don't want to really get away or compete with those tortilleros, the 60 tortilleros. What we want them to really use is the corn flour in order to make the tortilla. And what we're going to be putting is a tortilleria, which we're going to be calling, which is a new concept. We're going to call it Casa del Maíz, which is the house of the corn, which we're going to be putting a lot of products that are related to the corn. And it's going to be around we're going to be opening it in June 14. Now I'm doing advertising, here. June 14, we're going to be opening, hopefully. Hopefully we got all the permits in check. But the whole idea is to really show the people that it is a very high quality product that really, and it has a lot of benefits for the environment. And it is and you can really modernize really the tortilla industry. Every time that you hear about the tortilla industry, oh, how do they make it, But they never realize that really we can make it in a very high state-of-the-art process of production. And one of the things that we also want to do is just to demonstrate to those tortilleros that they can use the corn flour. And not only that, we're going to help them really to finance, talking about financing and all that. We're going to be financing our own machines to make the tortillas. Because we also produce the machines, so we're going to be doing a program in order to convert or to use those people that use nixtamal to really use corn flour. And we are going to be doing that, helping them to develop and to have their own business. You know, you realize 60 tortillerias, you say, well, 60 tortillerias, how much do they sell? Do you know how much do they sell on average, each tortilleria of those? $2 to $3 million a year. There is one tortilleria that is in Avenue, and the 15, something like that, it's called, I think, La Princesa or something like that. They sell about $8 million. And they all using nixtamal. So there is a huge market in which we can convert to use flour, and it is with the technology that we have, and everybody wins. You know, we sell more flour, we sell more machines, and they have a much better product. And also, every time that we talk to the tortilleros, the first thing they say, I know that I can make that I can produce, talking about productivity about this morning, I can produce more tortillas if I use corn flour than in nixtamal. So if you really help us out into that, we are really willing to change. And you will see, well, the difference between, you'll say, well, but nixtamal is better because it's a more natural and all that. That's really not true. One of the things that we are finding, there is a big supermarket, a Spanish supermarket, is called a Super. And they have in-store tortillerias. And they have about 50 stores. Out of that, half of them use corn flour, and the other half they use nixtamal. And when I talk, you know, what do you do now with the prices of the corn that are very high, due to especially to the ethanol, which really they're using a lot of the corn for the ethanol. So really the prices just skyrocket. So the opportunity it's cheaper really using the corn flour than to buy the corn themselves. So that is the biggest opportunity that we have. And one of the things that El Super was telling us, our best in-store tortilleria that they have, they sell it with maseca or with the corn flour. It's really not the difference between what is a nixtamal and what is a flour. It is as good. I'm not saying that it's better, but it's as good as the nixtamal, and it is good with the corn flour. And on top of that is with all the benefits that we have with the technology that we can provide and to the environment. We also have been producing in the milling process. We just developed a new technology in which we can use a lot less water. We use a lot of water too, but whenever we use the water, we use that water to irrigate the agricultural fields. Now we are using less water in order to preserve the water. You know, now water has become a big business. You know, before it was practically free. Now it is a big business, the water. So you have to really conserve the water. So we are really also working into that, develop the technology, and also to be more environmentally friendly. And the other thing is the human resources, like I was saying before. I think one of the biggest assets that the Gruma Corporation has is really the people. And it started all the way from the founder. I think that culture of passion, of hard work, and commitment, and perseverance is really within all the employees of the company. So, and we are also very committed to the commitment of quality, the internal transparency, the people development, and a open organization. And when I talk about open organization, it's really that concept of Casa del Maíz. We really brought that concept from Mexico. We went a trip to Mexico and we saw what they were doing and said, hey, we can do that here in the States and we can adapt it. So really we are as advantaged within our own selves. Whatever is developed in another country, which is different, we can also copy and do it ourselves internally. And that really, that gives us a lot of synergies in where we can be using. And just to finish, well, the Gruma community, we are really to a better future. You know, we have new technologies, new products, new businesses, new distribution channels, and new ways of using our products. We are evolving. We started with the tortilla, with the corn tortilla. We're evolving with the corn-based products, and then with the wheat-based products. And now we are also into the business of distributing other products, so like salsas, and so we want to really have a portfolio in which we can generate value. And really, we are also paying attention what are the consumer and the market trends. We know that we have been saying the people is really getting older, and people is getting aging. I mean, they live longer, and they need a special kind of products. But also, there is another type of people, especially the Hispanics, that is coming, that is younger, that is different, that they consume different products. So we also monitor that and adapting our products to those consumers. And with that, thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you very much. All the information that you gave today was just eye-opening and intriguing. And I know that there's probably people that are joining us on the internet that have some questions, but we don't have time for a whole lot of questions, so we'll ask the audience here first. Does anybody have any pressing questions? There's one, an E. Okay, we'll do one Twitter, and then we'll take one from the audience, okay? This is your E question. This goes to Gabriel. How are you coping between an open community housing development and the way to provide security to the community? And you did have your little security logo there.
Yes, I think is exactly the approach. When you put fences, when you put walls, when you divide communities, you make them unsafe. When you open the community and you work on the social tissue, you provide security. Security is something that we have to provide all, is responsible of all. And the other approach to security is on the design. Very simple solutions. You don't want to walk next to a wall. If you walk to a wall, they will climb the wall and they will hide behind the wall. Nobody will be noticing that they are robbing or making something. If you take out the wall, it's transparent, and there will be passive surveillance. And the third part of the approach is we're building with the community maintenance companies. We know that the government will not be able to provide the maintenance of the plants and the place and security. So we build these with the community with very, very little cost on the customer, so they will have some surveillance.
Okay. I know there's probably some questions. Take a couple questions. Anybody? Okay, can we pass her a microphone?
Yeah. My question is for Carlos. I am wondering what your average interest rate is and how that compares to nonprofit finance organizations or microfinance and their rates.
Yes. We have what we call a differential pricing structure, which basically relates to the cost of lending. So it has to do mostly with risk and the actual operating costs. So interest rates range between, essentially on an effective APR, annual interest rate, between 50 and 60%. The smaller the loan amount, the higher the interest rate tends to be, which is typical, in microfinance or in banking for that matter. I mean, one of the things that we struggle a lot with in terms of costing in microfinance is, just to give you very simple figures, to process a loan throughout a year, and that entails both the acquisition of the client, the marketing, going out to the client, evaluating, dispersing, collecting every single week, going back, doing that about 3 times a year. So it's high touch, high relationship kind of methodology. We do that for about $150, which in absolute terms isn't much money. But the fact that we only lend $300 makes the interest rate seem very, very high. If we were, for example, not lending $300, but lending $3,000 for that $150, interest rate would be very, very small. So there's what I would call a mathematical relationship, and you can see this in websites like the Mixed Market, which is a great source of information about the industry, of what is called the cost curve. So the smaller the loan size, the larger the interest rate tends to be. If you go to the Mixed Market, which is a collection of actually several thousand microfinance institutions throughout the world, you might be surprised that interest rates between non-for-profit and for-profit are not all that different. In fact, statistically, non-for-profits tend to charge higher interest rates than for-profit institutions, and it has to do, in many cases, with scale. Same thing in Compartamos. As Compartamos has grown to serve 2.5 million customers, we've been able to drop our interest rates to half of what they were when we started out. And that's the benefit of scale. And sometimes some NGOs, and there are some exceptions to that, don't have that benefit of growth and scale.
Any other pressing questions? We have time for one more question back there. Can we pass the microphone to the gentleman?
Hello, can you hear? Okay. This question is for Mr. Suarez about turning the nixtamal process, or producers that use the nixtamal process, into the maseca process. How hard is the sale in Mexico itself compared the sale from your perspective, convincing them to go to your product in terms of the sale when you do it in the States? Is it a cultural thing?
Well, more than the cultural thing, I think it's a political thing. And the reason is because in Mexico, it's different. I mean, the corn is sometimes just subsidized, so it's government-related and regulated, and there is a lot of organizations that are the nixtamaleros, which are very strong, very, very, very group of interest, and really it's more, we consider it's more government-related or more politically, you want to put it that way. So it is harder to really do it in Mexico than it is here in the States. It's definitely much. And that's why here in the United States, that's why we sell a lot of tortillas. If you look at it in Mexico, we don't sell that much tortillas. What we sell a lot is really the corn flour to make tortillas, but not that. And we work with the people that that use the corn flour the same way that we're doing it here. We help them to finance the machine, we help them to develop, and we really help them to really be more a entrepreneur and a very more modernized industry. But that's a totally different. We are going to be starting doing a little bit more tortillas in order really, especially in the south, that's in the south part of Mexico, which is harder than what it is with the poverty levels are really even harder. And that's what we're going to try to really do the same model that we're using in the States.
I wish we had more time to continue. Obviously, there's a lot of interest, and you really, your talk just opened a lot of eyes, I think, to a lot of things that maybe seemed obvious, but a lot of people don't. Now you kind of laid it out in front of us. So thank you very much for your insightful presentations. And we would like to ask the audience to, we wanted to give you a 15-minute break, but we're running a little bit behind, so we would ask you if you would just take a quick 7-minute break and be back here ready to finish up the last panel. Thank you.